For we contend not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places. From the American Midwest comes This Present Darkness, where we explore the supernatural aspects of the paranormal from a Catholic perspective and expose the dark forces in our world and beyond, both seen and unseen. Now, here's your host, historian, paranormal investigator, author, and ghost lorist, Ursula Bielski.
Well, welcome, my friends. I am Ursula Bielski, and this is This Present Darkness, where we explore everything in the world of the supernatural from a Catholic perspective. And I am so excited to have with me tonight someone I have not seen in so long, and someone who is so prolific, so incredible, and so knowledgeable about so many things in the supernatural. And so please help me welcome Mike Ricksecker. I am so delighted to have with me tonight Mike Ricksecker. I have known him for many years. He is, I knew him first as an author, like myself, of all things paranormal, especially ghost stuff.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people out there now that my husband calls them bottom feeders. They don't do any of their own research. They just read a lot of stuff and they write books based on that. This man is not one of those people. This man is gumshoe. He's out on the street. He's been like that from day one. He does all his own research. He comes up with all the original stuff. He finds all the original stories. And I'm so happy to have you here with me.
Thank you, Ursula. I really appreciate that. And it's great to talk to you again because it's been a couple of years. And, COVID
It
kind of
was
monkey wrench into a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was Chicago
So,
Ghost Con, October 2019 was the last time I saw you.
yeah, that would have been it. So that was almost 4 years ago.
Yeah,
My
before
gosh.
everything went to hell.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, though.
It doesn't. So, okay, so like I said, you started out as a writer and then you branched out into many other different things. And I think that we're going back to your roots tonight with one of the topics we're going to talk about and start off with, which is haunted Maryland. You're from Maryland.
Yeah, that was, well, I spent a number of years there. The Air Force brought me to Maryland, and when I got out of the Air Force, I
I
stuck
didn't
around
know
in
you
the
were in
area.
the Air Force. My husband
6
was in the
years.
Air Force. Oh my
No,
gosh.
fantastic.
Where were you stationed?
3 years at Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska, and then the last 3 at Fort Meade, Maryland, basically working for NSA.
Oh, Alaska, the plot thickens. We're going to be
Yeah, well,
talking
and
about
that's a
that
big
for
reason.
sure.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big reason why I wrote Alaska's Mysterious
Yeah.
Triangle. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
but
I
yeah,
had no
Ghosts of
idea.
Ghosts of Maryland was my first ghost book, and really the way that came about was I'd already published one book at that time, which was a fiction novel. It was a private eye novel. And, I'd always had an interest in supernatural paranormal. I'd had a number of things happen to me as a kid. And, I was kind of in the background doing research, talking with people, discovering how to do EVP work and that sort of stuff. So my first little investigation was about like around 1989. I was 15 years old. And yeah, I was about 15 years old. I had to think about that for a second. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time. So I was always in the background. But my first book was a fiction novel. And this is how long ago it was. I was marketing on MySpace.
Yeah. That was a bit ago. Yeah.
That was a little while ago. And the editor for Ghosts of Maryland contacted me, and she said, our publishing company is expanding their line of paranormal books, and we were trying to do one for each state. Noticed that you're in Maryland. I know you're a fiction writer, but it seems like you also have an interest in the paranormal as well. Would you be interested in writing a book on true hauntings in the state of Maryland? I was like, yeah. And so somehow she had found me and connected with me that way. And yeah, I mean, really, it was one of those that I think the universe was trying to steer me in the
In
right
that
direction.
direction.
Yeah.
I read that you loved the Encyclopedia Brown books when you were a kid. Did you
Yeah,
ever
that's
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
No,
you go ahead.
I was gonna say that's why I ended up, writing mysteries.
Yeah.
When I was in second grade, 7 years old, loved the Encyclopedia Brown books, and I was trying to mimic those. I was trying to write my own little Encyclopedia Brown stories by having, myself and my friends, taking the place of me. And I
That's
always
so
had this
cool.
one kid that I didn't like. He was my quote unquote Bugs Meanie, you know. so
Yeah.
yeah, so I was writing that stuff. I did write some little ghost stories back then. I wrote my own little version of The Raven, if you can imagine that. 7 years old, and I'm like piggybacking off of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And it's very juvenile, of course, but and then I even wrote a little historic fiction. So and that amounted to as I spent several years in Massachusetts growing up. So we had a lot of history on the American Revolution. So I was writing these little stories about basically it was like George Washington and his lieutenant having these conversations back and forth about, the battles and sending the troops out, and I had all kinds of little stick figures for depicting the battles and things like that. So
That's so
um
cool.
yeah, so
That is
writing's always
so
been a part of
cool.
my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever read I loved the John Belair's Gothic novels when I was a kid. I think
No.
we're maybe about the same age. They're
Yeah, yeah, we're pretty close.
yeah, look them up because they're really good. They're
Okay.
all set up in like Michigan and Wisconsin, and there's always
Oh,
like a
okay.
really smart kid who
Mhm.
befriends like a librarian or a professor, and they like solve supernatural things together.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was doing stuff like or reading stuff like Cam Jansen, I was reading Hardy Boys. Alfred
Of course.
Hitchcock had a three detective series, so I was reading Hitchcock.
I remember,
Those,
yes.
yeah, those are really good.
And Alfred Hitchcock's ghost books like Haunted House Full. Did you
Mhm.
have that one? Oh, love that stuff.
Yeah, I
Oh
had
my
some of
gosh.
those too,
Yeah,
and I also, and it's back on the desk behind me on Saucer, of course.
of course.
so,
Yeah, of
so yeah,
course.
that stuff's always been with me since I was a kid.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about Maryland. And you had an actually very profound experience with John Wilkes Booth in Maryland.
Yeah, at the John Wilkes Booth House. I mean, that's kind of yeah, because the first time that I went, my daughter had an experience there. She came with me. We were checking out the house, doing the tour, asking questions, that sort of thing. She had some experiences outside of the grounds. And when I got home, you know, sitting down, going through my notes, going through the photos, except there weren't any photos. And I would took all kinds of photos while I was there. Like, what in the world happened to my photos? So went back to the house. And it's like every time I go there, something crazy happens. So I went back to the house, and it happened to be it's like a Monday or something, whatever it was. They were actually closed that day, and that the building was like a good hour and a half from where I lived. So I was like, man, I drove all the way out here. And so I was like, because they had the gates closed at the bottom of the hill. So I was thinking, "Oh, I'll just take some photos from down here, at least get a shot of the house. Right. So as I'm about to get out of the car, all of a sudden a truck pulls up next to me, and guy gets out, and it turns out it's one of the docents from the house. And he says, no, it does confirm, yes, it's closed today, but I'm giving a private tour today. While I'm opening up the house, you can come up and take your photos. I was like, okay, great. That's awesome.
Aw.
Really nice guy. So we go up there, and I'm following him around the house, taking my photos as he's, kind of opening the shades and unlocking doors and things like that. I'm asking him questions as we're going along. And as we're going up the stairs, he tells me this story about in the room where John Wilkes Booth had stayed, that there are many times in which they go into that room, and on the bed, there's an impression as if somebody had been sleeping there. So as we continue up the stairs into the room, he goes past the bed to open up the shades. I look down at the bed, there's the impression. I said, you mean an impression like this? And it was funny because he got really upset. He's like, "That's what I'm talking about. We have to come up here. We have to clean it. We have to make make it look nice for the public, et cetera, et cetera. He was all upset
So it
that
was
there's this
annoying. It
indentation.
happened so
Yeah, it
often.
was annoying to him. Yeah. And he's about to go fix it. I'm like, whoa, wait. Can I take a photo of it first? He's like, okay, sure. So I snapped the photo, and that was fantastic because it is a rare photo that people don't usually get because of the fact that when they come into the house in the morning, they will straighten it out, and people are unable to get that photo. So I was able to.
That's amazing. I want to hear about one of my favorite topics, Edgar Allan Poe.
Hmm.
I love the
Yeah.
book. Have you ever read the book Midnight Dreary?
I haven't read it. No,
It's that
it's a shame. I have Edgar Allan Poe's complete work sitting in my living room, but I haven't been through the whole thing.
I'm gonna send you. Oh, who has? Oh my gosh.
Right. It's a
Only
lot. It's a
Poe
lot of material.
scholars. It's crazy. I'm gonna send you the link to this book because since you like mysteries, this
Mhm.
book, it's called Midnight Dreary, The Mysterious Death of Edgar Allan Poe. It's one of my favorite books, and it's written like a detective novel or
Okay.
a detective story, which is, so great and ironic. But it's really good. It just goes through all the details and the clues about his death. And
Okay. So this is somebody else after the fact trying to piece it together.
yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a, nonfiction thing, but it's written
Gotcha.
that way very cleverly. So there are places in Maryland that are attached, of course, to Edgar Allan
Yeah.
Poe's death? What would you say if you had to say the one place in Maryland that you think Edgar Allan Poe might be haunting? What would that be?
Well, there is the Poe House in downtown Baltimore. You can go there and take tours, and I don't know if they do investigations there. When I was around back then, I know they were really iffy about that. And again, it's been a number of years, so I don't know if they've actually gone ahead and allow that.
I found that a
Um,
lot of historical societies and museums that were like, oh, that's ridiculous. We would never
mhm.
do anything like that. Now they do, since
Yeah,
they've
a
seen
lot
that
of
so many
places
people are
are.
interested in it.
Yeah, and they figured out that it brings in an audience. There's clientele that will come and visit and pay handsomely to be able
Right.
to investigate those locations. So yeah, people are becoming more open to that. Of course, you have to go to Poe's grave in downtown Baltimore at Westminster there. And what's interesting is that where he's actually buried now is not where he was originally buried. So
Oh, I didn't know
at the front.
that.
Yeah, at the front, you have the nice big monument, and he's actually buried with his wife and his mother-in-law, which is where they ended up moving him. But in the back is his original grave, and they have it marked. And he was originally buried next to his father. His father's there. So I guess when
So,
the wife and the mother-in-law passed away, they moved him
yeah.
with them, and they put the monument there.
So do people have experiences at the grave, or is it elsewhere in Baltimore that people have said they
Yeah,
experience him?
yeah, people have said that they've experienced things there, and then underneath the chapel, there's a crypt underneath there, and
Yeah,
then
I
they've
visited
done
there many
investigations
years
and things like
ago, and
that down
it's
there. Yeah,
very spooky.
hmm yeah,
Like it's quintessentially spooky.
hmm
Have
yeah.
you
It's
never
one of those
had it?
locations you have to go.
Yeah, for sure. Like definitely a bucket list thing.
Mhm.
Um, what would you say is your favorite or most active site in Maryland as far as the paranormal?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it there with the Samuel Mudd House. That was always really active for me because even
Oh,
when I
with the
went.
John Wilkes Booth thing.
Yeah, with John Wilkes Booth,
Okay.
because even when I went back for, there was a magazine out there in Maryland, one of the counties had their own, magazine, and so they brought me out there to do an interview, shoot some photos, things like that. So I brought some of my equipment to shoot a YouTube video and tell the story that I just told you. And again, I had all kinds of equipment failure and another crazy experience. It seems like every time I would go there, I'd have something crazy happen. And basically, with that, instead of my photos or video that had been lost, this time it was all my audio. I had no audio from that. It's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
but
weird.
there's
I
a
think
lot
that,
of.
yeah, that's one of those things that I think we discount so much with the equipment failures when we're doing investigations and stuff. And it happens like almost every time. And we're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, batteries died, pictures won't take, whatever. And we just kind of blow it off because it happens so often. But there's definitely seems to be something there. Okay. I know it's not Maryland, but it's close. The bunny man thing and the goat
Oh, in
man thing.
Virginia. Yeah.
Can you tell us about the goat man and the bunny man?
Um, yeah. Yeah, I can't tell. Yeah, I really can't tell you a lot about. I mean, I remember looking up the Bunny Man and doing some research on that because at one point I was going to do some work on that. And I never really got around to it. Um, and the Goat Man, you have legends of the Goat Man like all over. Because the Goat Man is pretty big in Texas too. So
Oh,
that's kind of an
really?
interesting from.
Oh, so
Yeah,
that's
that's kind
not
of
the only, Maryland's not the only place
Mhm.
that, or Virginia is
No,
not the only place that that happens. Oh, wait,
no.
goat man is Maryland.
Yeah, Goatman's Maryland. You have Bunnyman is Virginia. You also have things like the Snallygaster in Maryland,
Wait, the what?
which is the Snallygaster. So this is
What is that?
it's kind of supernatural winged serpent type of a creature. You can almost think of like some sort of dragon-like bird sort of thing. Um, but very large, and it's out in the woods in Western Maryland. So it's one of those legendary creatures.
That kind of sounds like the Paiza bird down in
Yeah,
Alton.
kind of like that, but a little bit of a different makeup because it's more serpentine in nature rather
Oh,
than
okay. Yeah,
Paisaw
yeah.
is kind of almost more of like a griffin bird sort of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like there's a lot of cryptids in the phenomena that's reported in that whole area of Maryland and Virginia, like more than other places.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk like Western Maryland and you get down into Virginia, like the Shenandoah Mountains, that sort of thing, once you get out into nature, a lot of the those type of stories, cryptids have kind of stuck around. It's the location where they could possibly live, and so those stories have stayed. Where urban areas that have been developed, people don't really talk about those sorts of things as much anymore. But
Yeah.
I think there's always something to these stories that, even though they've
A
been passed down
kernel of
over the
truth.
years,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
there
for
is.
sure. Definitely. I know it has nothing to do with Maryland, but I just found out literally last week about, have you ever heard of the goblins of Kentucky?
Oh yeah, yeah, and yeah, Hellier the documentary, and
Crazy.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put a link to that too, and maybe we'll
Mhm.
talk about that on another episode, but damn, there's some weird stuff going on in this world. Um, all right, let's move on because I want to talk to you about, I want to talk to you about Haunted Maryland. I want to talk to you about shadow people,
Mhm.
and I want to talk to you about the trips that you've done to Egypt with the
Sure.
Stargate. So let's talk about your book, A Walk in the Shadows, which is about one of the most disturbing and common, I think, and mysterious experiences that so many people have with the paranormal, and that's with what we call shadow people.
Yeah.
And these are, typically, well, you'll tell us, usually encountered at night, usually while you're sleeping, you wake up. Um, and there's as many probably theories about what these things are as people who have experienced them. So your first experience with the
Mhm.
paranormal was with a shadow person. Can you tell us about that?
It was kind of the classic story, in which I was about 8 years old, woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this tall, dark shadow standing in the corner of my bedroom. And of course, I didn't know anything about shadow people or anything like that at the time. I just thought somebody had broken into the house and they're going to rob the place, or maybe they're going to kill me. I don't know. That's about what you think of, when you're that age. Um, it, it didn't do that. I'm still alive, which is great, but it did get physical with me though. It approached my bed and I'm trying to scream. My mouth opens up, nothing's coming out because I'm just too terrified. And it leans over, staring at this blank black face. There's just nothing there. No eyes, no nose, no mouth,
So it's just a
nothing.
black form.
Just a black form, but it was humanoid in form, and very solid. It ended up grabbing me by the wrists crossed my arms across my body, and then it ran off down the hall, of all places, into a closet. At that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off screaming to my parents' bedroom. And, they're nice, kind parents. They're trying to, pat me on the back, console me down, or console me, try to talk me down, and, just trying to tell me that, you just had a bad dream. Yeah, but I knew I hadn't had a bad dream. I was awake for this whole thing. So that was really my first significant paranormal experience.
Some years ago now, I wrote a book. I don't think anyone's read it. It was called, the publisher called it There's Something Under the Bed with New Page Books. It was all about children's experiences with the paranormal. And, the sources I used, there were a lot of like new age people that were sensitives that worked a lot with kids, and, they were familiar, they said, with these kinds of entities. And it's weird because, when we're kids, we're like, oh yeah, there's a monster in my closet. There's
Mhm.
something in my closet. There's something under my bed. And so many of these sensitives say that these things actually do live in the closet and under the bed. And a lot of their antidotes, their suggestions for the kids dealing with this is to leave the closet door open, put a light in the closet, put a light under the bed. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it really just it depends on what you're dealing with, because like you alluded to at the beginning, there are a lot of different theories, and they are a lot of different things. It just kind of depends on,
So
what
there's
the
a lot
particular
of
shadow
different,
is.
you think there's a lot of different kinds of entities that are grouped under
Well,
one
there
name.
you got to think we're talking resonance energy, vibration, that sort of thing. So as they're you know coming into existence on our plane of existence, into our dimension or what have you, that they're the way that we're able to see them is similar in some regard. So you could have like two different entities. Maybe one's a human spirit that can't fully manifest as an apparition. Maybe as another is an extraterrestrial. Maybe another is an interdimensional being. But the way our eyes work and see the reflection of the light, which in this case is lack of light because it's dark in nature, they're seemingly similar to us, but they're different between each other. So, like for instance, the next shadows that I saw, I was 13 years old. We were moving from that house that we were in at Massachusetts to a new house in Ohio. And as I'm unpacking boxes and putting things away, I kept seeing this form in the doorway to my bedroom. I turned and looked. It was translucent in nature. Still had like a darkish hue to it, but I could see through it a bit. And off it would go whenever I'd look at it. And this happened many times over in the next several days, where I'd be unpacking boxes, putting things away. I'd see this thing standing in my doorway, turn and look, and off it would go. And so after that happening for several days, I ended up asking my mom, um, you know, I just told her, hey, I'm seeing this thing. What do you think? And she said that she had actually seen the thing too, which was
Hmm.
great for me because one, it was confirmation that I wasn't crazy. I was actually seeing this thing, because
Right.
so was mom. And then two, she wasn't really alarmed by it. And so it's like, okay, if mom's okay with it, then I don't have anything to worry about. And so I got playful with the thing, started calling him Tom, like peeping Tom, because he'd peep in my doorway and I'd look and off he'd go. So I'd say, hi, Tom, and he'd take off. So very, very different than the first one, because the first one, again, it got very physical with me. It was also very, very solid. Where this one, I don't
Yeah.
know, almost seemed shy and again, translucent. It was very, very fast. So I just chalked it up to something that was there at the house, was curious about the new family moving in, and deemed we were okay and went about its business after a while. Because after about 3 or 4 months, it just that activity stopped.
Do you think some of these things could be related to aliens, extraterrestrials?
Yeah, in a couple of different ways. For one, when we're talking about technology with some sort of ET visiting us, we got to think about, okay, if we go to another planet ourselves, we're probably not going to just make our presence immediately known, say, hi guys. We're probably going to observe the life forms on that planet for a while, kind of judge and get an idea of, who these beings are and that sort of thing. So, we would try to maybe disguise ourselves or something like that. So, in one sense, these could be extraterrestrials using some sort of cloaking device that maybe they think that they're going to look invisible to us when they come down, but maybe they don't fully understand the physiology of our eyes. And again, our eyes, see into only a certain wavelength of light, and perhaps they don't understand what that wavelength
Mm-hmm.
is, or perhaps it works differently for them. And so we're able to see a shadowy form, but not the whole thing. In another sense, if these are ETs that could be, and we do it here on Earth, where people astral project, they project their consciousness, to other parts of the planet. Some people say they even leave the planet when they project. So, extraterrestrials that have perhaps perfected this could be projecting their consciousness across the universe, and when they come into our world, we could be seeing. Some people report, even seeing like shimmer type images, where
Mm-hmm.
it's not a
Right.
shadow, it's not an apparition, but there's like some weird shimmer going on, so that could even be something like that. So there's a lot of different possibilities that we could be talking about here, even interdimensional travel, so you know anything that's traveling interdimensionally, we almost have to consider it
Just
going
to
to
put
be
out there,
unique
I
to.
think all of these things are
Yeah,
interdimensional. I don't think
yeah.
they're like space people. I think it's something very different.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really interesting to hear about these kinds of theories about these things. It's crazy. This more the time goes on, doesn't it seem like as the years have gone on, like so much more is like illuminated about all these different possibilities.
Conversation going now.
Yeah.
Before, yeah, when we were growing up, you didn't really talk about that. We had Scooby Doo, right? And
Right.
it was
Yeah.
always a person. It wasn't real. So yeah, it was always like hush hush. You didn't talk about that. That stuff is just stories. And if you actually really believe these things were happening, then you were a nut job, and you might find yourself put away for a while. But yeah,
Yeah.
over the last 25 years or so, the
Yeah, since we
conversation has
started
really
doing this
picked up.
stuff, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Completely. Was anybody else doing this stuff when you started doing it? Nobody.
No, no, not really. Just a handful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody thought we were nuts. So,
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. It's just insane. Like, now all these ghost hunting shows since, 2005 or whatever. And now all this UFO, UAP stuff that's just in the
mhm.
news every day. Did you ever think this would happen?
Well, I mean, it's about time they're talking about it again. To me, it's
Yeah.
a shame that they don't recognize all the research that was done back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's like they've kind of swept all
Right.
that under the rug, and it's like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. If you just look at Project Blue Book alone, there's 700 open cases that were never solved
Right.
with that.
Right.
Yeah, the government and their uh the way they're handling it and viewing it, they've basically started from like, okay, we're going to take it from 2000 and on, as if nothing happened before that.
Right.
Even when they've had the congressional hearings, and they're asking these couple of representatives about older cases, they basically are like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. Come on, this
Yeah.
isn't just a recent thing, this has been happening forever.
Yeah.
But it's great that the one positive you can kind of take out of this is that they're at least opening up the conversation. They can't deny it anymore, because back in the day, it was like, if you had a photo of some lights in the sky, or like a blurry image, or something, then they could excuse it away, excuse it away. But these days, everybody's walking around with an HD or a 4K camera in their pocket with their cell phones. Our
Right.
technology that we have for the individual is so much higher that we're capturing some really good things that they can't deny anymore. So they have to give us a few crumbs.
Over Christmas, I had my mentor, my professor from grad school, and his wife over for brunch. And they had moved into a retirement home near Northwestern University, here just north of Chicago. And we were just talking at brunch, and my professor was, I mean, he in grad school I studied alternative religions and stuff like that. So he was familiar with UFO religions and things like that. And I found out that one of his best friends, when they moved into this retirement home, had become David Jacobs, the you know who he is, the
Yeah.
cultural historian who became one of the most prominent ufologists. And you know what he believes, that countless numbers of people have been taken by aliens, and that there's this massive hybridization program going on. What do you think about this?
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. One of the things we were talking earlier about, okay, they might not fully understand our physiology. Well, what would we do if we came across another planet with life forms? Well, we'd probably capture those life forms and study them. Yeah, I certainly don't rule that out at all, that people have been abducted, that, even going back to the, Barney and Betty Hill case, it makes sense. They were taken for a while, had different tests done on them, kind of get an idea, what are these life forms that are on this planet? And then, okay, they did their studies and they cast them back down to the ground,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I'm completely open to that idea. It makes sense.
On the show, we talk a lot about, because I'm Catholic, we talk a lot about the supernatural and the paranormal and Catholicism, Christianity.
Mhm.
You've probably seen all through the paranormal stuff going on, the UFO stuff and everything else, this theory that these aliens are actually these ancient, fallen angels, gods,
Mhm.
going back to the Nephilim in the Bible. What do you think about all that? Are you a religious person at
Yeah,
all?
and the Anunnaki and all that. I grew up Catholic, so quite familiar. Yeah, there's always something to those stories. A lot of people try to discredit the Bible in its entirety because of religious dogma, and it's like, throw the religious dogma out. Let's actually take a look at what it says, because there are a lot of things in there that line up to other historic texts.
Right.
And
Yeah.
sure, things may have gotten shifted and moved and changed up a bit over the years, but on the whole, you know these things happen. I mean, you take the story that's in every culture all over the world, the flood. That's in the Bible too, so it's not,
And
it's,
every ancient culture has
yeah,
their story. Yeah.
exactly. So, and you can see the influences over the years as well. So you look at something like, okay, the Ten Commandments. Well, the Mesopotamians had the Code of Hammurabi as a very, similar type of things here. So yeah, there's definitely something to these stories, because all these cultures, again, you know, they talk about beings coming from the heavens down here to earth, imparting knowledge upon the people. So, that's in, see that in Native American cultures. You see that in the like the Mayans and the Incans. You see that in Middle Eastern culture. You see that all over the world. So there's definitely something to it. You can't discredit the Bible just because you don't agree with the modern religion aspect of it.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about maybe some things living underground in Alaska, maybe some UFO stuff in Alaska, maybe some cryptids in Alaska. And we're going to talk about your trips to Egypt to examine Stargates, perhaps. So we'll be back in just exactly 1 minute. So join us back here right then. couple weeks ago, we had as a guest Cheryl Carter. I don't know if you've read her
Yeah.
book Dimensions,
I
and
haven't
she
read it,
talked.
but I know Cheryl. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's wrote a book Dimensions about all the mysterious triangles in the United States, but you wrote an entire book about the Alaska Triangle. And now I just found out tonight that you actually served in the Air Force in Alaska. So what apparently your interest in the weird stuff going on in Alaska came from you serving there in the Air Force.
Yeah, well, there's some strange and crazy and weird things that I witnessed while I was up there. And granted, most of my focus was on the fact that, okay, I was a very young guy, 18 years old. I'm thrust into Alaska. I'm in the military, which is pretty rigid. And then I decided to get married really young too and start a family. So my focus wasn't on that, but still, you can't help but notice crazy things that are going on up there. So uh, you heard the stories and you heard the rumors of this, triangle in Alaska, much like the Bermuda Triangle. So several years ago, I was approached by the producers for the television show, The Alaska Triangle, and they had come across one of my videos on YouTube that I had done on portals, in paranormal activity.
Right.
What's kind of funny about that, it was one of my probably least viewed videos on my YouTube channel, but yet they came across that and they contacted me about it. So I didn't know what their show was at first, and so they're just talking to me about um, portals, earth energy, the way it relates to supernatural and paranormal activity and other strange phenomena and disappearances, all that sort of stuff. And we're just having that sort of discussion. And then they asked me, well, what do you know about that type of activity happening in Alaska? I was like, well, there's that whole idea of the Alaska Triangle. And they started laughing. That's our show. So,
Oh,
um, so
wow.
it was, yeah, so it was a perfect fit. I had again shadow experiences up there in the Alaska Command Building, but what was
Oh, you
great was
did yourself.
yeah, but I was not the only one. And I was just on the show or just aired Mission Unexplained. And what I didn't like about what they uh, shared from that story was they kind of made it all centered on me. It's like, okay, fine, I'm the storyteller, but they brought on these couple of different people to kind of debunk some of the different things. And it's like, well, yeah, you could say that if it was just happening to me, but everybody was talking about this. Everybody was seeing these things down there, and basically, it was in the basement of the Alaska Command Building, and we would see just nothing like sinister or scary or anything like that. It was just eerie because you'd see these shadows moving in and about, usually in the back office area, but sometimes we'd see them in some of the back computer centers and things like that. And
Mm, okay.
it was one of those where uh, I'm sitting down with my supervisor. It was our first little discussion together when I first ended up in that office, and we're just having a conversation, a little get to know you. And I see something kind of move by his door. And there's like in the direction of where this thing was moving, there's nothing beyond there. There's like a little partition to a cubicle that opened up into a little storage area. So nobody's going back there. And you could kind of see it was a shadow. And so he noticed that I noticed it, and he just said, "Yeah, that happens here sometimes." Like, "Oh, okay." And so, but people would talk about they'd see things like,
That's
you'd be
common
walking with
knowledge.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd be walking with somebody, down the hall. Maybe you'd just gotten, a snack or something, and you're going back to your desk and you're chatting, and all of a sudden you both see something. Like, did you see that? Yeah, yeah. But you don't want to talk about it too much because if you were really vocal about it, then you'd be sent down to mental health. You can't
Right.
be seeing things while
Yeah.
you're in
Yeah.
the military. So, but there was this prevailing rumor that that the building had once been a hospital, and where we were at in the basement had been the morgue, where our computer racks were, like the patch panels and multiplexers and all that, had been where they kept the coolers. So that was a story that I went with for years on this. Well, when I did the research for my book, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, of course, I want to get the facts. I want to, get the information on the building so that I can definitively state what this building was and why the activity would be happening down there. Come to find out, it was never a hospital. it was built exactly for what we were using it for, which was command. So then it's like, okay, why in the world were the shadows happening down there?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I can't go back there and investigate and figure it out. But I can. My speculation is you're talking about a lot of energy, a lot of electromagnetic energy in that area, not just from the triangle, but also all the equipment and everything that's down there. So it's creating this field for strange things to be able to occur and kind of permeate into our plane of existence. So I think what we were actually experiencing down there were some sort of time slips that either they were personnel from the past, it could have been personnel from the future, they could have even been ourselves, just at a little bit different point in time. So, and
You
that's
have a
actually a big part of my book that's
I
coming
was
out here in
gonna say you have a book
August.
coming out on time
Yeah.
travel.
Yeah, Travels Through Time is coming out August 1st. It's available for pre-order right now. But yeah, that
I'll
story's
put
in
the
that book,
link
and I get
down in
into
the
that.
description. How did you get interested in time travel from being in Alaska?
Did you ever see the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and
Yeah,
Jane
for
Seymour?
sure.
Yes. Yeah, I loved that movie as a kid. So that always
Huh.
interested me. Yeah,
I'll
my
put the link
first
for that in the description too.
I mentioned astral travel earlier, and my first glimpse into that was as a 14-year-old. I mentioned that move when we moved from Massachusetts to Ohio, and
Mm.
I'd spent 10 years of my childhood in Massachusetts. I was homesick and had grown up watching that movie as well. So what I was trying to do one night in my bed was like Richard does in the movie, Christopher Reeve's character is basically he willed his consciousness back to another point in time. Well, I was trying to will my consciousness back to another point in time when I was back in Massachusetts. Didn't quite get there. Basically, I got to the point of I felt like this. I basically had to a real meditative state, and I started feeling this, like waves, like I was almost on water, but of course I wasn't wet. So it was like these waves up and down. I started to feel this little electrostatic tingling, and that spooked me, and I snapped myself out of it. But it was like talking to people, uh, later on as I was, getting older and sharing that story. Um, like, man, you were on the verge of having an out of body experience. You were almost about to astral project. This is the closest I've ever gotten, and it was like 14 years old.
Did you ever hear about the supposedly the machine that the Vatican has that can travel back in time and take pictures? I think it's called the chronometer. Have you heard about this?
I've heard of it. I don't know how much. It's hard to put stock into those kinds of stories that you can't
Yeah.
really confirm like that, because the Vatican, geez, you could say it's
Oh
down in the
my
Vatican
gosh.
vaults. You could come up with anything, just make something up and say
Yeah.
it's in the Vatican vaults, and
Yeah.
there's no way to confirm it. So
Right.
it's hard to, yeah, but it would not
There's
surprise me
some
if the
weird
Vatican had something
stuff
like
with
that.
the Vatican and the
Mhm.
UFO thing. Have you ever have you ever seen the book Exo Vaticana?
No.
It's all about UFOs, and it's by two, oh, I can't remember their names now. They're two evangelical scholars that wrote the book. It's like this thick.
Okay.
And it's incredible. It's like I did a show on it, but it's very strange how the Catholic Church seems to be the only Christian church that's like pushing UFOs, and all the other Christian churches are like, no, they're not. There's no
Mm.
aliens. They're demons. It's not real. The Catholic Church seems like totally on board with the whole thing. And these two scholars just like it's so well researcched. I'm going to send you the links so you can check it out because
Okay,
it's
sure.
really
Yeah, I'll check it
good.
out. Mhm.
But yeah, did you ever see the do you listen to Art Bell, the old Art Bell
Yeah,
recording?
I used to listen to some of that back in the day. Yeah.
Did you ever listen to his shows with Madman Markham, the time traveler?
I'm familiar with him. Yeah. Again, one of those that it's like, I don't think.
Yeah, it just was so entertaining to listen to him talk about how he built
Yeah.
the time machine with the cherry picker and the yeah.
Yeah. It's a little out there. And kind of one of the things that I say in the book, and I don't get into him in particular, but I do talk about the idea of a time machine, something physical. But then I related to, okay, DeLorean and flux capacitor from Back to the Future.
Mhm.
And I think when we're talking about real time travel, that it's not going to be that. It's not going to be a machine, or our theoretical physicists will say, well, if you get to a black hole, and it's like, well, okay, we're not getting next to a black hole. It'll just rip us apart.
Right.
I think real time travel will be really more like what we saw in Somewhere in Time. Will have more to do with the consciousness. Will have more to do with ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
because everything in this universe is frequency, resonance, vibration. So if we can find that right frequency to be able to tune into, so to speak, another point in time, then we'll be able to allow our consciousness to travel back to that point.
Especially now that we know that memory is actually in our DNA.
Hmm.
And it just seems that it just illuminates so much more that everything is so connected
It really is. And
over
even,
time with memory and experience.
yeah, and even locked within our DNA are our ancestors' memories. All that is
Yeah.
passed down.
Right,
So it's
right.
encoded within us, and it's just a matter of unlocking it. That's why we
Yeah.
can go to a location and be like, this seems really familiar. Because,
Yeah.
probably one of our ancestors were there, or even us from a past life.
Right. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Mhm. Absolutely.
What about the Philadelphia experiment? I love this topic.
Um,
Do you think it's just
I
all a hoax or
I think there could certainly be something to it. Having worked with the government and the things that they were trying to do, why not?
yeah.
Why not?
This is where the battleship supposedly
Yeah, they cloaked it.
dematerialized and
Yeah.
for the listeners who aren't familiar. Oh my gosh, I could talk about this all night long. But we still have to talk about Egypt and Stargates.
Yes.
So, as a so-called ghost hunter, whatever, going back so many years, for a long time, I've always felt that there were these places, certain few rare places where you would go where it seemed like there was a portal, a doorway where these interdimensional things would come into our physical world. And every place has their own ones. Here in Chicago, we always talk about Hull House, in the most haunted house in Chicago, where the devil baby was brought in 1913, Jane Addams and all of that. But so many people believe that that Native Americans opened up these interdimensional doorways or portals when they were forced off their land in different areas around the United States, kind of like as a calling card, like so that the white settlers would be tormented by all of these spiritual beings coming in and out. And it's weird because, over these many years, I've found that at places where it's reported that there are portals, it does seem to be different things that people experience rather than a sort of a haunting phenomenon where, you'll see an old woman walking down the hallway with a candle every Tuesday night or something like that. There's all different kinds of things that people see, different kinds
Right.
of beings, humanoid beings, animals, different mixtures of creatures, all different times, day and night, different from different eras and time, different ages. And I had an experience like that actually at Hull House, where I came home from doing a tour one night. I woke up at like 3 a.m. and there was this like a bodybuilder with like blue jeans and an orange t-shirt
Oh, wow.
standing on top of me while I was lying in
Oh,
bed.
geez. Okay.
And this was a kind of thing that a lot of people on our tours over the years would experience, where they'd have the tour, we take them the whole house, and then they go home to all different parts of the world, literally, and they would start seeing somebody in their house or something in their house. And yeah, it's very weird. Talk to us a little bit about what are Stargates? Because it's similar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking
On
about
a bigger level, much bigger level.
yeah. Yeah, you're talking about a gateway or a portal into, another place in the cosmos, or it could be another place here on the planet as well. But yeah, it's that doorway. And this is something that, even science has backed up, at least to a degree. Where, NASA discovered the X points, the portals that are
Right.
actually off the surface of Earth, out in space between the sun and the Earth. And it's allowing, the solar wind to permeate through on a faster level. But when we're talking like the Egyptian Stargates, these are they're they're primarily in a lot of the different temples, and you'll see the symbolism right there spells out Stargate.
Really?
The word is
Okay.
Saba, yeah. And yeah, if you just know what you're looking for, it's right there in plain sight. You're walking through these doors. Actually, the best one is Hatshepsut's mortuary temple, which is right outside of Luxor, and the whole setup is amazing because you have this long staircase that goes up into the temple, and the temple is basically set into the cliff face. And on either side of that staircase, you have these two. Right now, in more modern times, they're carved as falcons, which is supposed to be representative of Horus. But before that, they were repurposed. They were recarved. They had been snakes. Many people believe they may have been cobras. They still have the snake tail going up the sides of the staircase. Now, in ancient times, the snake, the serpent, was representative of energy. Off on the side of the temple, as we're talking about energy, there's the base of an old pyramid that is no longer there. The base is there, but the rest of it's just totally gone. And a lot of people believe that pyramids were used to harness the earth energy. And some people believe the whole thing was actually some sort of power plant, but it was at least harnessing energy. So you have the representation of energy, you have an actual device there that's harnessing energy. As you continue to walk up that staircase, as you pass through the different doorways, like into the courtyard and into the area with the Holy of Holies, the bark hall and everything, on either side, you see Stargates on either side of the doorways. And then as you go into from there into the courtyard, and from the courtyard into the bark hall, again, Stargates. Now, between the bark hall and the Holy of Holies, there's a couple of guards there, and they will not let you pass. In fact, they even tell the tour guides are not allowed in this area. You guys have to
Really?
stay outside. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you can tip one of the guards to take a photo, for you inside. But if you get up there super early in the day, before anybody else is there, you can pay off the guards with a lot of money, and they will let you inside for a minute. I guess if you get a good one. And if you go way back in there, on the one wall, there's this massive cartouche of stars. And so this is the Stargate. The whole thing is set up for the teleportation of the consciousness. And some people believe actually physically you could pass back and forth from one location to another.
What about Skinwalker Ranch? Some people have said this is a Stargate. What do
I
you
mean,
think?
it could be. There's definitely something strange magnetic anomalies that are occurring there. The readings that they've been getting there are just like off the charts. I mean, they have pulled out strange metal out of the mesa from there. All the reports of actually seeing the skinwalkers, the paranormal activity, the UFO sightings. The skeptics are always going to kind of discredit that, and it's like, discredit all you want, but you cannot deny the strange electromagnetic activity that is in that area. It is seriously
And that
measurable. So
electromagnetism actually could be responsible for people's like hallucinations and things like that, but you still haven't explained the magnetic activity that's there.
right, exactly. And really, I mean, what's occurring, and we see this in like the different triangle areas, Bermuda, Alaska, Dragon's
Right.
Triangle out near Japan. Skinwalker Ranch is another one of those locations that basically what happens is the Earth's core generates a magnetic field. It's spinning inside, it's molten iron. It creates a magnetic field, and as it expands outward through the Earth's mantle, through the crust, it's interacting with different metals and minerals. And when magnetism hits a different metal, it creates different magnetic fields. And so, I basically in these triangle areas, it's hitting a certain type of metal or a certain amount of metal within the ground there that causes this different strengths of electromagnetic activity that causes all these different crazy things to happen. So with Skinwalker Ranch, I think there's a significant deposit of something there that as the Earth's just natural magnetism comes through, hits that and creates these insane fields.
You had mentioned about the pyramids in Egypt. Did you say they produce the energy
So there's a couple of different
or
schools of thought
attract
here.
energy?
Yeah, there's a couple of different schools of thought here. So one is a harnessing of that energy. They were made of take the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's made of two different limestones and granite. All those are conductors of electromagnetic energy, and it's right on one of those nodes of energy. The telluric currents in the Earth, what people commonly refer to as ley lines. Is that one of those crossings that uh, produces that at a more significant rate? And so you have that pyramid sitting right on top of there. There are others, like Christopher Dunn, who came up with the Giza power plant theory that believes it was an actual power plant, an actual machine to generate energy. And I do believe, at least the Great Pyramid itself, was some sort of machine. And to me, the dead giveaway is the Queen's Chamber, because you have the niche within that chamber, which the mainstream archaeologists try to say, well, this is a place where you'd have an idol or a statue. It's like, okay, except for the back wall of it is scorched black from something that was burning and was so hot that the stone was melting. So it's vitrified. It's vitrification back there. So to me, that's the smoking gun, pun intended. With that. But then you look at other ones like the Bent Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, you see these corbelled structures within there. Even like the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid has a corbelled structure, which is which you would use as like a harmonic resonance chamber. So yeah, I think a lot of these pyramids, had a sound technology built into them, and they were using, again, speculative what they were using the power for, but they were certainly using it for something. They were not tombs.
Wow. And I think I remember Cheryl said there's a pyramid under Alaska, the Alaska Triangle.
There's the idea of the Black Pyramid. And so I did write a little bit about that in Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. It's very hard to get information on that. There's a handful of people that have talked about it over the years. It's supposed to be under around the Mount Denali area. And this is one, basically, Linda Moulton Howe, who's done a lot of research on this, like all the people that have reported on this have basically reported to her. So she's kind of the keeper of all the information on it. So it's her Earth Files site, which is fine. But we've had a number of people kind of discuss and talk about the different ideas that this was a pyramid that could generate enough power that could stretch not only from Alaska, but also into Canada. People have talked about, okay, it's black in nature. There's an extraterrestrial presence there, and a lot of different things like that. So, but again, hard to get any definitive proof on there because it's underground. Military was supposed to be involved, that sort of thing. So, it's not like the Great Pyramid in Giza where we can look at it, it's right there, and then speculate as to what they used it for. We can't actually see the Black Pyramid itself.
I see. This has been so interesting. I am so grateful that you came on the show tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to put all your links from you, but let us know, what is your website?
Yeah, website is MikeRicksecker.com. I also have the online learning portal, connecteduniverseportal.com. And in addition to my books, check out the Shadow Dimension docuseries, which is on Tubi TV and Roku channel.
Great. Yeah. And I'll put all the links for that. What's coming up? You've got the time travel book. What's the title of that coming up?
Yeah, Travels Through Time. That is that will be released August 1st, but available for pre-order now.
Oh,
yeah,
next month.
on that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And what about trips coming up?
Yeah, I have the tour in Egypt that is coming up next April. That is 17th through the 28th, something like that. But yes, but sign up now. It's always amazing. This is Stargates of Ancient Egypt too. So our guide is Muhammad Ibrahim. He is absolutely amazing. He gets us into all of
The
all the secret places.
local secret
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah. Like we'll be at a temple and he'll be chatting with somebody. You're like, all right, guys, come over here, and we'll get into a back room somewhere. We do get the Great Pyramid of Giza 2 hours just ourselves, and the whole thing's opened up to us. So we get down to the subterranean chamber and all of that stuff. So it's amazing.
Fantastic. Conferences, anything local, appearances over the summer,
Yeah,
fall?
I have a book signing, Bell Mansion, Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's on
Oh,
August
yeah.
12th.
Oh,
I'll be at Michigan
cool.
Paracon, which is the
August, yeah,
24th
up
to
in
the
Sault Ste.
26th,
Marie.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Phenomicon out in Utah. A lot of Skinwalker Ranch
Oh,
guys will
you're
be
going to
there.
be at that?
Yep.
I'm
That's
hoping to
September
actually
6th
go
through
to
the 10th.
that. Oh, I'm hoping to go
That's
to
a
that.
good one. It's going to be a lot of great people there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. A lot of stuff going on. You're a busy man. Good
A
stuff.
little bit,
A little
especially coming
bit.
up here.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time with us tonight. And it's just been great. And I hope you'll come back when the new book comes out and talk to us all about time
Yeah.
travel in depth. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great talking with you, Ursula. It's been too
You
long.
too. Wonderful to see you again. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
You
Take
too.
care.
Thanks for listening to This Present Darkness. The video version of this podcast is available on Ursula Bielski's World of the Supernatural YouTube channel. Be sure to become a subscriber by signing up with Buzzsprout today. And remember to sign up for the World of the Supernatural mailing list at worldofthesupernatural.com for our monthly newsletter and more. And don't forget to support the podcast through Patreon.